Hello knitters, my name is Cindy Dell. I'm a TKGA certified master hand knitter and a certified knitting instructor. Today I'm going to show you how I use beads in my knitting. Okay, the first thing I'm going to show you today is how to insert or use beads in your knitting using a crochet hook. There are two other ways I'm going to show you as well, and that includes having them pre-strung, and I'll show you that one after I'm finished. So what you're going to need is, I've got 4 beads here. These are 6/0 beads, and a crochet hook that fits inside the bead like that. This is a 1.1 millimeter crochet hook. There are others that can that will fit into these types, but this is the one that works best for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide where I want my beads. So what I've decided to do is knit 2, place a bead, knit 2, place a bead, knit 2, place a bead. And this will just depend on, what your chart says or where you think you want them. So I'm just going to pick up a bead, and this is the stitch where I want my bead to go. So all I'm going to do is insert the crochet hook, pull it down, and keep it a little bit taut. You can see how I'm making that tight. And then just slide the bead down onto the stitch and place the stitch back on the needle, on the left hand needle, and you knit it. There you can see the bead. Let's go 3 instead of 2. And then here's my stitch where I'm going to place my bead. I'll pick up my bead, insert the hook as if to purl. Keep this a little tight. You don't want to stretch it out too far. You want to make sure you don't distort your stitches too much, but just pull it through like that. Place the stitch back on the left hand needle and knit it. There. Then let's go 3. 1, 2, 3. Here's our stitch where I'm going to place the bead. Slide it over the stitch, place it back on, and knit. One more. I've got my crochet hook up, it's pointing up. Catch that stitch and pull that bead through onto that stitch and place it back and knit it. And we're going to finish out. I'm going to just purl across real quickly. Then we are going to actually cut the yarn, and I'm going to show you how to string your beads on. If you were going to be doing this next technique, is that split? If you were going to be doing this next technique, not using a crochet hook but pre-stringing the beads, you're going to want to do that pre-stringing before you start your project. And that means you're going to have to count how many beads you're going to need for your project. So one drawback to using the pre-strung method is that you can have hundreds of beads on, and it tends to weigh down your work. And so it just depends on your project and what your preference is. You could actually, put on as many beads as you think you might need or more, and then take the beads off of the pre-strung after you're done with the project. So if you have too many, it's not going to be a big deal. Okay, here we are at the beginning. There you can see my beads. One has a split stitch on it, I think. Okay. So you can see the nicely laid. There, you can see that the hole runs vertically on these. Now I'm just going to cut my yarn and show you how I pre-string. So what I'm using here is I need to make sure that the eye of my needle is going to fit through the beads. And so what I'm using is a chenille needle. I like a chenille needle because it has a pretty wide eye, and it fits over these beads very nicely. The trick is getting it strung or threaded. I'm going to use this little threading device. You can use, there's lots of other, some people use dental floss and other things. I'm just going to thread my yarn through this little hole. Sometimes a crochet hook might even help with that. There we go. And then pull it through. There we go. Now I'm going to pre-string. So I'm just picking up my beads. I'm going to put on 8 because I'm going to do 2 different ways, 2 different methods. This next portion, we're going to knit the beads in as we come to them. So I'm going to attach my yarn. Normally you would, like I said, have these all pre-strung before you start your project. Pull these a little tight. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to knit this, or place my needle as if to knit, pull this up, pull this bead up, knit the stitch, and push that little bead right through, and finish it out. Just like that. 1, 2, 3. Next bead, knit your stitch, or wrap it, push the bead right through, and finish by taking the stitch off the needle. And you always want to make sure you reorient, or you orient the knitted needle to where you want it. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. Pull my bead up, wrap the stitch, push the bead through, and reorient it back. Let's do it one more time. Here's the stitch where I want my bead. Bring the bead up, wrap it, push the bead through. There you go. Okay. Those look pretty good. Let's put it back. When we come to this, we want to make sure that the bead is not facing to the back. You want to make sure those beads are facing to the front when you purl. They tend to kind of recede to the back anyway. You can see this one definitely has receded. You can pop it back through, but many times they just stay in the back. Okay, make sure that's to the front. Okay. The next method, well, let's take a look at this first. You can see they look pretty good, but they do tend to recede. Pull this up a little, make sure. Okay. Next method is using a slip stitch, which I find really fun. This is, for me, this is a fun one to work in, one of my favorite ways. So we'll knit up to where the bead goes. So this stitch right here is where I'm going to place my bead. What I'm going to do is bring the bead up and move the yarn and the bead to the front. Slip it, and with the yarn remaining in front, or the bead remaining in front, move that yarn to the back and then knit. And there you've placed your bead. Let's do another. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Bring the bead up and bring the yarn and the bead to the front. Slip the next stitch. Keep the bead in the front and place the yarn to the back again and knit. This is just honestly very fun. Place the yarn and the bead to the front, slip the stitch, keep the bead to the front, but take the yarn to the back and knit. And one more. Let's move our last little bead up to the front, slip the stitch, move the yarn back while keeping the bead to the front, and knit all the way to the end. And there you go. When you use a crochet hook on these beads, they're actually on the row below. You're not knitting them in as you go, you're placing that bead on a stitch below and then knitting over the top of it. So you want to keep that in mind when you work on a chart, or when you think about where you want your beads to go. So all of these methods can be used in different ways, different reasons why you would use them. And they're just really fun ways to add a little bit of interest and color and texture to your knitting. So I hope this was helpful.